All right, let's get going on our examples. If you guys will follow along on your notes with me, that would be lovely. As we are looking at each one of the graphs on our notes, we're going to be doing all 6 things, okay? So if you guys will look at this first graph with me, please notice where it crosses the x-axis and where it crosses the y-axis, because those are going to be our x-intercepts and our y-intercepts. So I want you guys to help me out. The x-intercept is where? Looks like these are counting by 2s, so we've got -2, -4, and it's halfway between -4 and -6. So it's crossing the x-axis right there, which means the x-intercept is going to be -5. Now, the y-intercept, same thing. Let's look at this. We're counting by 2s again, so 2, 4, and we're up again, so that's going to be a +5. Okay, so my x-intercept is -5, my y-intercept is +5. I also want to look at this graph on where it's positive and where it's negative. If you guys will remember correctly, Dax can only travel from left to right, and he always travels from -infinity to +infinity. Okay, so I'm also going to teach you guys a little bit about interval notation, and that just means you have 2 parentheses followed by a comma. It's just going to look like an ordered pair, just like you guys already know. I want to know where this graph is positive and where it is negative. Okay, so you're going to draw your 2 interval notations and we will fill them in. So as Dax is traveling from left to right, as Dax is traveling from left to right, remember he always starts at -infinity, okay? You guys will remember that this arrow on the graph means that that line goes on forever and ever in both directions. So as this line continues, yes, it's going negative in the y direction, but it's also going negative in the x direction, right? It's going to approach lower and lower, but it's also going further and further left. Okay, so that means he always starts at -infinity. And where he starts in -infinity, do you remember, is he above ground being positive or is he below ground being negative? Looks like this graph starts below ground, so that's negative. This graph starts negative. So Dax starts negative at -infinity, and then it looks like it crosses and starts becoming positive at what point? We've already determined the x-intercept is -5, and that's where it starts changing to be positive, correct? So we're going to say that he's negative from -infinity to -5. And then he starts being positive from -5, and then he goes and he's positive forever and ever in both the up direction and the right direction, which means he ends at +infinity. Okay, that graph is positive starting at -5 on the x-axis, because we're talking about Dax with an x. Starting at -5, it becomes positive for the rest of its time. Okay, now we're going to be looking at whether it's going to be increasing or decreasing. This graph is a little bit easy to deal with because we're only going in one direction, and if you'll look at Dax, he's traveling in what direction? He's going uphill, which means he is only doing what? He's only increasing. Okay, and remember, again, he always starts at -infinity and he always ends at +infinity. Because that graph never goes downhill, it never decreases, so you can just leave this completely blank or just put a slash mark through it. Okay, there's example 1.